Hey, sweet souls. This is DTO in the Flow. Thank you for being with us today. We are live streaming on a multitude of platforms. And as you look below, I get to interview Kristen of Dream Tonic. And you may ask, who is Kristen of Dream Tonic? Well, here we go. You ready for an amazing introduction? We have Kristen, who is Dream Tonic. She's a singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and music producer. In addition to performing and recording, she writes music for film and TV, with her latest tracks being featured in the new Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser Adventure Hotel in Disney World. She pairs a lifetime of being a classically trained pianist with her love of electronic dance music. Her ethereal vocals, warm pads, and heavy subs reveal whispers of her biggest influences. Billie Eilish, Mortuba, haven't heard that group yet, Bjork, and Portishead. I know those. To name a few, her sound has been described as dream pop, trip hop, and heavy bass influences. Kristen is a proud member of the class of 808, an elite squad of EDM producers who release music under the Producer Dojo label, founded by the acclaimed bass music pioneer Il Gates. In addition to Dream Tonic, Kristen has various side projects and collaborations underway, including original contemporary classical piano, public domain classical arrangements, 80s inspired retro synthwave, deep house, and future bass projects. As you can hear, we're going to be speaking with a multidimensional being here, so get ready. Kristen's diverse catalog is currently represented by a variety of sync agencies and music libraries. Kristen's based in San Diego. Yep, love San Diego. When not producing music, she can be found teaching music to the next generation of prodigies, spending time with her husband and her two young children, frolicking at music festivals, dancing to Afro-Brazilian percussion, or relaxing on the beach with a cold drink. Amazing, amazing. What does that feel like, Kristen? We're going to bring her on camera to have your expansive bio read.
Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. Grateful for the opportunity. And I want to give a shout out. That intro to the podcast, that is a rendition of For Elise that you had composed, created, and added some really cool electronic components to. So anyone out there that wants to hear more of that, of course, you can go to Kristen's website, which is dreamtonicmusic.com. I'm going to put that right away down on the screen. And if anyone wants to listen to my music, get a hold of me, go to DTO Music, as well as, because we're live streaming, which is so much fun, what you can do is the following. You can comment, ask a question, you can share this. Sharing is caring. And if anything, if anyone knows what algorithms are, just drop an emoji. Your favorite emoji. It can be any emoji. There's thousands of them. Put that in the comments, and it will support this floating to the top so more people can hear what we will be speaking about today, especially all those music lovers out there, or if you're already a creator of music, art, if you're a painter, if you're a poet, if you are anywhere in a place in your journey. And I always feel like this as an adult, that you have these passions, you have these, like you're in the sandbox of life when you're a kid, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm an adult now, I have to be serious and I have to do all this jobby job worky stuff. And what Kristen can share and what I can share is having music as a career, as a pathway, is really powerful. And moonlighting and doing a little bit of both. When I started my music career, I was a full-time school teacher, and then I was in the studio learning Ableton. So all of those people out there that know about digital audio workstations, which is a fancy way of saying the software that you use in order to create and produce music on your own, besides necessarily needing to go to a fancy Abbey Road music studio. Although if we had a time machine, I'm sure we'd all say yes to going to Abbey Road. And so Kristen is in her studio right now in San Diego. And let's, first of all, before we start our 5Q interview, I have these awesome 5 questions that'll get into the origin story of music. I want to give a big shout out to Mark and Kitty DeVoe, because they're your neighbors. And Mark of Buddha Music Group has been my manager for multiple years. And as you can see, Dream Tonic, DT, and you see DTO, and it's like, wait, you're Dream Tonic Music, and then you're DTO, DTM, DTO. So obviously, I have a philosophy too. And if you're a musician out there, creative soul, somehow we always find each other. There's some like magnetic, divine, cosmic flow of, oh, you love to play with sounds and frequencies, and whoa, and you're a singer and you play whatever instrument. Somehow we always just, the tribe gathers, right? Would you agree with that, Kristen?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a lot of synchronicity that brought us together.
Absolutely. And then I live in Costa Rica, so this is a full-on international interview. And we already have some people commenting. So we have Bupinder, my father-in-law, Satsrikal from Canada. And we have Damon, who is an amazing drummer. I met him at the Hanuman Yoga Festival, where I debuted our song, which we'll talk about later. As you can see on the scroller below, we have a brand new song coming out called Here I Am. And then we have Christina. Looks like that's a friend of yours, Kristen. Go, Kristen. Yeah, she's already like cheering along. And then we got the big heart. We got the love from Damon. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So let's kick it off. And because we're musicians, let's just do like a fun little drum roll. All right. Question number 1. Here it is. This is your origin story question. So when did you begin to love music?
There is a very distinct time when I was in my living room and my dad had just, he was always looking at the New York Times. What's the latest, hottest album out? Well, he got Enya, and I just loved that album, Watermark. And I was blasting it in my living room when I was growing up. And there was this one song that came on, the signature song, Watermark. And something happened to me that had never happened before. And I actually started crying when I heard the song. And it wasn't a sad cry. It was a cry that I couldn't quite explain, but it felt kind of good, like in an interesting way. It felt good to have such a strong emotional response to a song. And so Watermark was the moment in my life when I realized I want to do that to people. I want to create a strong emotional response through my music. And so that was the moment in my life when I knew that music was my path, and it happened at a young age.
And yeah, she's so amazing. Let me sail. All the Orinoco flow and all the music. That was the first music I listened to that was like the soundtrack of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It wasn't necessarily needed to be for other art forms. Like life reflects art, art reflects life. And I would say, wouldn't you agree, Kristen? One of the first artists that we got introduced to where you could just repeat the song.
Yes.
And you weren't like, oh, it gets stale after 3 or 4 plays. You're like, this is amazing.
A vibe. It's an atmosphere. It's a vibe. And that's, I think, what I connected with that particular piece of art is the vibe and the atmosphere. It did something to me. And obviously to a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. And it's ambient, new age. It's applicable for so much. You can pacify. You're a mother, so chill out your babies, your kids when they're younger.
Yep.
Yeah, music as a tool for so many amazing ways. So, someone put in, love the drum roll. Hey, we're musicians here. So, yeah, your origin story then is listening to Enya, and really, for all of us out there, when you can receive and absorb art, whatever that is, whether it's a poem, whether it's painting, or it's music, when you can really get it, like when it hits your soul, that's when I feel like for you is like, boom, the lights came on. So that leads us into question number 2. So what inspired you to play the piano and become a musician?
Well, initially I started studying piano at the age of 6 because my parents said, you're going to take piano lessons. I started doing it and I actually really loved it. I would come home and I would tinker on the piano and I would create these melodies. I wasn't proficient yet at notating music, at reading music. I was only 6. But I was starting to compose and I would create graphic notation and I would get out my, just a plain white piece of paper and crayon and I would draw lines and squiggly things to indicate the duration of a particular note. I would create, height directions to indicate this goes higher, this goes lower. And so I knew that I needed to study from a young age. I knew I needed to gain access and mastery and knowledge over this language that was going to then enable me to share the stuff that was in my head. So I had that inclination from a very young age. And I actually still have some of my initial musical drawings. I saved them.
I love that. And we're in the same boat as far as having our parents inspire us to become proficient in a musical instrument. And same for me. I took piano lessons, and dedication, commitment, scales, more scales.
Arpeggios, all this stuff.
Reading music, flipping the pages,
Yeah.
all of it. Yeah. Wow. And how many years did you take piano?
Well, I ended up, I started when I was 6 and I went to performing arts high school. I went on to get a piano performance degree in college, and I went on to receive a master's in piano performance as well. So well past the college years, I was studying in depth. I had a whole love affair with Debussy, Satie, Chopin. And all that has deeply influenced my musical sensibilities and my musical taste today.
I love that. Yeah, 6 years old, and because I've taught piano, and of course, parents ask me often, like, "Can my kids start taking piano at 2 or 3?" And I'm like, "Well, the motor skills of the digits are like fully prepped, so around 5 or 6 years old, that's the sweet spot." So
I
if
always
anyone,
go by the guideline when your child is learning how to read is a good time to learn piano. There's a lot of
yeah,
connections that can be kind of correlated between the two. So that's a good guideline. But everything before that, play, play, play. Even once you start formally studying music, it's good to always embody play
yeah,
in your study. Not
that
just
reminds me. My favorite quote from Alan Watts is, "You don't work music, you play music," and it was a whole
yes.
lecture about life's a dance, and we're here to celebrate and have fun. And yeah, from 6 years old, wow, what a journey, right? And all the different styles of music, genres, all the different opportunities, and of course, to get your master's. I acknowledge you for going through that process. I got my master's in educational technology, but
Yeah.
I to play the piano and to really get into that finite work, and then the music theory. I think a lot of people always think. Well, I'll speak for myself. At first, I thought, oh, music's this creative outlet, and it's all, like a painting. You're just like in the flow. Then I'm
Mhm.
like, wait, this is like scientific. You got to let your left brain know about the circle of fifths, and if you're a C major, the relative A minor keys, and it always can support you navigating when you're songwriting. If you ever hit a block or a
Yes.
temporary barrier, like, oh, let me fall back to my music theory or some Dorian scale or something way out there. So
I
I'm
had,
sure you
I
have
had
tons
a,
of tools in your toolkit, right?
I had an initial very strong resistance to learning music theory, especially when I was in high school. And it took me a little bit to get past that block. But now I can see how it is only uplifted and made everything make more sense for me musically. So it's elevated my compositions for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's multiple infinite pathways and music.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, let's jump into question 3. So tell us, Kristen, about your songwriting process.
Yes. Well, I do create a lot of solo piano works, but I also produce a lot of vocal music and songs. And so I always kind of have a process through time and repetition I've kind of developed and codified in my own way. But I always start out with chords, and I start out with a particular chord progression to create a vibe. And I create the vibe, and then I go in and I add some bass and some drums and kind of sketch out, like, it could be just a 4 or 8 bar loop at this point. It's not a song yet, but I just create the vibe and the mood. And then I will go into my vocal booth and I will put on my headphones and I will just sing gibberish. I will sing la las, doo doos, and I will just explore. And you might have heard melody is king or melody is queen. And it's true. So like when I'm creating a song, I'm thinking about the melody first and I'm not worrying about the lyrics yet. And so I will go and just do gibberish. And then sometimes this is where you kind of have to turn a part of your brain off and just open up and say, okay, like I'm not judging anything. And at this point, certain syllables or words or phrases might start to pop in. And so I listen to those and I'll acknowledge, like, I really want this particular cadence of a rhythm, and I'll listen to that. And I'll kind of hone in on that. And then over time, I will definitely create and sculpt the song out of that particular process. So that's kind of my
Mm-hmm.
songwriting process in a nutshell. I always try to keep hooks and choruses very minimal to like 2, 3, 4 words. Just try to condense the essence of the song in the hook. And then, I just go from there.
Wonderful. And here's some awesome photos of you performing in the studio. Whole collage here that I'm finding at dreamtonicmusic.com. Here you are in Ableton producing. And I love the gibberish. And actually, that leads in beautifully to what one of my friends, Damon, just shared when you're talking about Enya, which is that Enya invented a language to sing her songs, like a light language.
It's amazing.
So you
Yeah.
speaking this light language or this channeled, and coming up with whatever works.
Yep.
There you go. This is why we do these interviews. You can start connecting all the dots. Be like, oh yeah,
Yes.
it was Enya. And then how do I, approach my own musical process? And that's a really beautiful way because you don't know what could come through. And songwriting has infinite possibilities. And so when you are in there putting in that focus, and as we all know, music is transcendental. It can teleport us. It can go beyond space and time. So maybe the vocalizations are not even like you. It's just some other energy that you're feeling into. So that's why
I
it's a dream tonic, right? It's not keep on
I have
dreaming.
a kind of an interesting but short, funny story about my most recent project. I wrote a bunch of music for the new Star Wars hotel at Disney World, and so for the longest time, I had no idea what this project was. It was top secret. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew is I was supposed to create upscale, sophisticated lounge music with alien vocals. I didn't know what it was for. So I had a similar process with the gibberish connection where I then looked up online various languages and I rolled around different sounds in my tongue. And I kind of just wrote down stuff that felt good. And I invented my own alien language. And it actually had to go through many, many layers of approval because they needed to make sure it didn't conflict with anything else. And so it was quite the process. And so I had a similar process with that whole thing. Is the gibberish works.
Oh, I love that. And the first movie I ever saw in the movie theater was A New Hope. I was around 3 years old. Babysitter took us to watch our first movie, and it was one of those imprintable like moments where it just like stamps your soul. You're like,
Yeah.
and bow to John Williams. So you're continuing the legacy, Kristen. That was a huge accomplishment. So wonderful.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this is a great little break because we want to talk about songwriting. And of course, you and I got to work on a song, which is a part of the background, if everyone can see around here. So I will pop up what that artwork looks like so we can talk further about Here I Am, which first of all was a piano composition. And then it evolved into the final product. So you recently were on socials and you shared a little bit about that process. So let's roll that clip for everyone to hear how that takes place as far as the songwriting.
Hey guys, it's been a minute. I have a lot to catch you up on, but in the near future, like as in next Thursday, I am co-releasing a track with the amazing DTO, and I just kind of wanted to show you where this track came from and then where we took it to. So basically, I wrote this piano solo for a brief that came through, and then we took the piano solo and we completely repurposed it into an entirely new track, which you will hear come next Thursday. So here's a little bit from where it came from and then where it ended up.
So awesome.
Yay.
Yes. So let's play a couple other of those clips. Can't wait for everyone to experience more of the song. So let's jump into question number 4, which is, how do people respond to your music?
I get a lot of messages that say people feel deeply when they listen to my music, and it moves them. And it could be that they're experiencing a moment of sadness, a moment of pleasure, a moment of longing, but they feel like they have a strong emotional reaction in some way, shape, or form. And so I'm all about that, because I want to produce emotional responses. I want to kind of get you into a vibe state. And so I feel like people have responded depending on the song. Sometimes it makes them want to dance, and sometimes it makes them want to sit and chill. And so when I initially wrote this EP that I released a couple of months back, there were a bunch of remixers that actually got onto the EP and created entirely new versions and new vibes. And so there has been a big response to remix these tracks, which has been an awesome response that I've gotten from the music. That's like the highest compliment is, can I remix your track? So that in a nutshell is how people have responded to my music.
Well, you properly named your artist name as Dream Tonic. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what's beautiful. I feel one of the questions that came up in a recent interview was, why do we do music? Like, of all the activities, all the ways that we could put our energy into whatever category of life, why do we do music? And I feel like one of the answers to that question is what you just shared. Like, when people feel touched, moved, and inspired, when there's some emotions, when they can move through that energy and really feel that sounds and frequencies facilitate that. Case in point, every morning when I wake up in Costa Rica and I hear the birds and I hear the sounds of nature, there's like this, opposed to like crazy noises or sounds that are abrasive to the soul and to the system, to have music really allow for there to be these sensations and feelings. And what I love about our collaboration is, when I practice yoga, when I'm in a meditation, or when I simply want to, have a fresh perspective, Here I Am is one of those songs that can really get people into the present moment. Of course, it's great to be a visionary, to dream. If we're always in the future, and if we're mulling over past events, it really takes us out of the glorious present moment. So love the title, love how it just drops people in. And that's really what the intention is. And
I completely agree. And I think one of the magical things about music is it gives us access to emotional landscapes within ourselves that we otherwise would have never experienced, because the music takes us there and it's a new place each time. And with different, if you think of like a prism, the music shines a light on a particular part of yourself that you've maybe never seen or have never experienced in that way. And the music is the catalyst for experiencing these particular emotional landscapes within yourself.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah. And the ripple effects, as you were sharing, remixes and other versions and interpretations can go on. And then it's almost like the prism in that metaphor you're using just brings in other aspects, different colors of the rainbow, or even when you think about from India, like the 7 energy centers called chakras, like where, wow, my heart chakra feels this, or wow, I'm not really speaking my truth in my throat chakra, so I'm going to speak that out, and I'm going to be clear and have boundaries in my life, right? So music can inspire us. And I remember going to my first Burning Man where the music was so incredibly just alien, out of this world, dubby, and my body was moving and dancing in ways. It was wild. It was such a really fun way, and it's great exercise. If anyone forgets, move your body. Movement's important. And so dance, shake it out, and allow for the music. And I'll share this quick backstory because it made me think of this. When you think of emotions, the first like real legitimate relationship I was in when I was a freshman in high school, I was playing Wind Beneath My Wings by Bette Midler in the practice room. And like one of the most attractive sophomores that I had my eye on, she walked by and I remember her looking in and like, oh, and then that was like my first high school love. So stay in those piano lessons, boys and girls. So yeah, music can sway us and move us. And it also, not only can it allow for people to receive certain expressions, like when my parents were going through a divorce, I remember me playing the drums and playing the piano. It was like this way, and this camaraderie, especially as you were jamming with friends and other musicians, guitarists, bass players, keyboardists, drummers, is like this sensation that you feel, like a synergy that starts to form. And the same thing happened for us, despite of the fact that I was in Costa Rica through this entire collaborative process. You were in California. There's the synergy that takes place when you go back and forth. I was going to say ping pong, but I know pickleball is the thing now. So when you're playing pickleball with the song, little side note, the reason why it's called pickleball, I watched this documentary on it, is because there was a dog named Pickle that used to hang out when the people were inventing the game.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's crazy, right? So with that, it's like you never understand how that back and forth call and answer in like kirtan music, where someone will sing a mantra and then people repeat it back and you go back and forth. You play, you dance, you flow. And that's what I love about collaborations. I love about remixes. And I also love how the original song, as you said, was a straightforward piano piece. And then that develops. We had an amazing cellist, Erdis, that played on this track. And to bring in all these other textures and layers and your vocals. I love all the stacks of harmonies and melodies. So I know that when people experience this song, well, here's a good moment. How about we give everyone a quick minute clip? Sound good?
Yes.
All right. So we will introduce Here I Am by Dream Tonic and DTO. Ah, it's hard to stop it. It's a whole journey. This is one of Himalaya's favorite songs. She gets in this very like etheric state when she hears it, and she's
That's
like, "Wow!"
awesome to hear.
The first time she heard it, of course, we always test it out with our spouses.
Mhm.
She's like, "Wait, that could be in like a Netflix show, or it could be in a movie." And I'm like, "Well, anyone out there listening, give us a call. Yeah, go to dtomusic.com or dreamtonicmusic.com and give us a conversation opportunity to have that take place. And that's what's great too in this day and age. We're also a part of a mastermind that meets from time to time, and it's fellow musicians that, the raw reality is that the music industry, since back when there were orchestras and performances and symphonies, right, there was different ways. The way you made an income is people physically going to that performance, and of course then there's who owns that art, the songwriter. And then if you remember when we were growing up, you buy the sheet music, and then you get royalties, and then there's all these ways in the music industry in general that there's revenue streams, or vinyls, 8-tracks, cassette tapes, compact discs, and of course everything, including this moment, we're streaming live. So there's this streaming component that are on a multitude of apps, and of course there's certain apps where you integrate music into what people are creating. So what I love is when we as artists can find unique ways of getting our music out there. I always like to say, video killed the radio star, and playlists are the new radio. So getting on playlists on certain apps like Spotify or Apple Music or any of those out there is always really empowering. And I feel that it's impossible to live in a cave and only do music. It's almost like marketing and branding and sharing and networking. I know you go to LA a lot, and you have a lot of groups that are in the conversation of licensing music. So I feel like that's a really beautiful part to break free from the I have to be a starving artist conversation, right? That mentality, that old pattern can really drag us down. It doesn't light us up. It doesn't inspire us. If you feel like, oh, I'm just going to do this because I have a message to share, but I got to, work 5 jobs or something nuts like that. I was a high school teacher, and I was doing music on the side. And of course, I chose those 2 professions. It's like, how do I balance this out? How do I create that revenue flow? So I feel like that's really a powerful part. Do you have any comments to say about that?
I love what you said about, having that paradigm shift. And there are just so many alternative paths to music creation and income stream that it really takes thinking outside of the box. So it's a bigger conversation to have, but it's possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. So anyone that's listening, if you have a fear of, or if your parents say the story of, oh, we don't want you to be a musician because it's not a quote unquote real profession. Well, if you're passionate about it, if you put your time and energy into it, if you learn about it, if you're adaptable, then, and if it's your soul's calling, in India, they say it's like your dharmic path. It's your purpose. It's here and now. If you weren't to do those, whatever activities in your life that you're called to do, then you would feel, when you put your head on the pillow at night, like, I feel incomplete. I don't feel like I'm actually doing what I was designed to do in this lifetime. So that's like the definition of dharma, where if you weren't to be doing it, there would be this massive void. And so for me, my through line, my baseline, similar to yours, Kristen, no matter what profession, whether I'm a national marketing director at a company, whether I'm running my marketing agency, whether I'm hosting people at Embody Costa Rica for retreats, which includes my music, of course. But it's like at the end of the day, I feel like how people really connect with me is through the music, because it speaks, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words, like music speaks like multitudes of energy streams and words out there.
Absolutely.
So it's so cool. And another thing we want to bring up is talking about how the music industry operates is pre-saving music. Not everyone knows about this. Really supports us as artists. So because this is launching September 22nd, so if you're watching this now, or on the 21st or on the 22nd, of course, you'll be able to stream it on multitudes of platforms. But when you go to that link, which I will put in the comments on all of our platforms for everyone to see, it will really support us. So that's popping up now, and I'm going to put it on the screen for everyone to see. And so it will take you to this page, and you just simply click to pre-save on Spotify, pre-order on iTunes. And it really makes a big difference, because it then provides opportunities for the song to get noticed of all the thousands of songs that get released on a daily basis. So I always like to educate people, because I know there's so many people that love what we do, Kristen, and they don't always understand how they can actually make a difference and have an impact and support us.
Yes.
So pre-save. Wonderful. Well, let's wrap up with our last question, which is, where can we find you online? Where are you?
I am dreamtonicmusic.com is my website, and I have a newsletter you can subscribe to by clicking on my website, the subscribe button. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all the socials at Dreamtonic Music. And yeah, I'm here. I'm accessible. And I love to collaborate.
Yes, collaboration is your love language. That's right. I feel the same. Yeah, so here is dreamtonicmusic.com. You can see the bio that I read earlier of who Kristen is. And if you go to the navigation, you can see all of the press. And here's the subscribe button if you want to subscribe to the newsletter to keep in touch, reach out directly. Here's the contact, as well as what you mentioned earlier. You have a multitude of projects you've already launched. Here's some press. You mentioned earlier the EP that you had remixed. So this is that EP. So yeah, dreamtonicmusic.com. I highly recommend everyone go to there. And then what we'll do at this point is, if you have any closing words to wrap up.
Once this song launches on September 22nd, we would love to hear how it affects you. So if you could contact either myself or DTO with maybe a few adjectives, a few words, a few descriptors, we're going to be putting together some reels and things like that. And there might even be some free studio time in there with me and or DTO.
Yeah, I love mentoring as well.
Yeah. So contact us. Tell us how this song affects you. We would love to hear it. That's why we're here, is we want to create people feeling things. That's why we're here.
Absolutely. And let's give a big shout out. Who designed this amazing artwork?
Yes, that my husband and I did this artwork, and it was super fun. And it's like another aspect of the creative process. And I would also like to shout out, the mastering engineer and Lucian Francis and all the different hands that went into this track, and the cellist Erdis, and just so much love went into the creation of this track.
Absolutely. And you said the word earlier, collaboration.
Yes.
When you collaborate, it can move mountains, because we can't do everything by ourselves. And there's a leadership program that Himalaya and I are teaching, and we talk about, there's a book called The Big Leap, and it's all about your zone of genius. And a lot of times in this lifetime, there are people that lone wolf it, and they think, oh, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to learn. It's like, there's only so many hours in the day. You have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to, work out, and, have relationships, and walk the earth, and play in the sandbox of life. And, and you're, as a mother, I'm sure you have a multitude of ways that your kids put you in different directions. You get to play. And so like, you can't do everything. So this is what people have asked me, like, oh, DTO, you don't master your own music? I'm like, people win Grammys for mastering music. Like, I know what my lane is. I know I'm a piano player, drummer. I know I'm a producer, composer. Let me stick to that, and then I can have other people support in the other aspects of it. And so that's what I always feel, because then you can actually, like, I launch a brand new song every month personally. And that the way I've been able to do that is you build a team. You have people that are going to support you, the dream team.
Yeah. And there's so much value to having an external set of ears on your track. And because we can get demo ears really easily, where we hear the same song a gazillion times and we don't notice things after a while. And so when we get it in front of other ears, it just elevates the track.
And this is why your husband and Himalaya, they listen to it and they're like, yes, keep going. That's it. Go, go. And also, I think having the cheerleader, and then of course, I always say feedback is gold.
Yes.
Right. So be like, oh, actually, could you, very similar to if you're an author, if anyone out there has written a book, it would be foolish to just write the book in one night and then just, okay, it's now published. Like, you go through different drafts. You have an editor, as you're sharing the same analogy of a fresh set of ears. And then there's a conversation of subjectivity versus objectivity. Like, we as the subjects that created Here I Am, no matter when we hear it, however, there's going to be some energetic, even if it's like an unconscious thing. I always say that when I'm in yoga classes and instructors will play my music. How do I have this Jedi training where I'm like, I'm in the moment, I'm in my own experience. It's an objective thing. The music was already like created and done, but sometimes I've gotten way better at it. I'm sure you are better as well.
I'm the worst in Shavasana because I have notated so many orchestral scores. It's ridiculous, where I have to analyze the oboe, analyze the bass, and then notate it all. That I am constantly writing out the music. Even if it's a one-line crystal bowl thing, I'm writing it out in my head. I'm like, that's a perfect fifth. And then it's going up a minor third. And like, I can't get away from it. I think I just need to do silence for Shavasana. So.
Yes. And you know what's really cool, you probably know this, is a lot of people out there, if you were to say, tell me what the sound is that's an oboe. I've had a friend once say, like, because I'm like, oh, do you hear that sick bass line? They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? Certain people can't even separate. It's like when you make a smoothie, some people just drink the smoothie, enjoy it. They don't know the breakdown of each individual ingredient that created the recipe. Right. And to reverse engineer is really challenging for certain people's ears. So that's a skill set altogether. Not everyone can do that, especially analyze it like, oh, I know how that little, trick or stunt worked. Like, okay.
Yeah. I have to try to turn it off at times if I want to tune in a different way, but it's hard.
Agreed. It is. And even in silence, you could hear the birds chirp. There's a bird here that's always like, da, da, da. Da, da. And I'm like, sounds like da 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 da. I'm like, even the birds are reminding me of a Chicago Cubs baseball game with the organ player. So like everything leads back to music somehow. So
I know. And then you're tapping out I wonder what BPM that chirp is at.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same bird, and the toucans actually make a particular sound. Actually, bird watching is a thing in Costa Rica, and it's probably because people are, put into that world of their calls and the mating calls, and that's another part of it too. Like, nature is music, and that's how we really get to be in that place. And when you talked earlier about your songwriting process, that's one of my steps is, okay, how do I get grounded in nature, take a yoga class, and then, okay, I'm clear as I can be to then start creating. And that's what I did when we were collaborating on Here I Am, is you did your part. It's like a baton, right?
Yep.
Back and forth. And then at the end of it, it's like it builds up. And my favorite mathematical equation is 1 + 1 = infinity.
I love that.
Yeah. Anything's possible when you start adding other people's layers. And we all have blind spots, like, oh, this is what I would have done. But like, on the drum section, okay, this is what could be done here. And so it's beautiful.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your talents, your passion for music, your super mom
Thank you.
energy that I always am bowing to. And I get to be in San Diego soon, so we get to continue sharing, promoting, and distributing the song that will be out on the 22nd of September. So it is happening. And again, a quick reminder to everyone to pre-save the link that is listed here. If you go to Dream Tonic on Facebook, or if you go to Buddha Music Group, DTO, any of the pages that you happen to be watching this on the stream. And again, reach out to us. As Kristen said, we're approachable. We would love to connect, have a conversation about whatever it is that moves you. And that's why we do music, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Keep on enjoying this moment and keep on dreaming. Dream Tonic. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.